Maria Kirch, astronomer. Imagine a world lit only by fire and stars. It's the turn of the 18th century in Berlin, the heart of a rising Prussian kingdom, a city buzzing with the energy of the Enlightenment. Science is exploding. Isaac Newton's laws have redefined the heavens, and new powerful telescopes are peeling back the mysteries of the cosmos layer by layer. This is an age of discovery, of intellectual ferment, of brilliant minds charting the universe. But this brave new world of science had a strict, unwritten rule: no women allowed. Universities, scientific academies, the prestigious guilds that controlled crafts and knowledge, these were all exclusive boys' clubs. A woman's domain was considered to be the home, her purpose defined by children, kitchen, and church. To challenge this was to challenge the very fabric of society. And into this rigid, male-dominated world stepped Maria Margareta Winkelmann, a woman whose passion for the stars was so fierce it could not be contained by convention. Born in 1670 near Leipzig, Maria wasn't the product of a formal, privileged education. She couldn't be. The doors to those institutions were bolted shut for her. Instead, her fire was kindled by a man who himself existed on the fringes of the formal scientific establishment. Christoph Arnold, a farmer and self-taught astronomer known as the astronomical peasant. Under his tutelage, Maria learned to navigate the night sky, to understand the intricate dance of the planets, and to handle the brass and glass instruments that were the keys to the kingdom of the cosmos. This was a practical, hands-on education, one rooted not in dusty lecture halls, but in the cold, clear air of the German countryside. It instilled in her a deep, observational rigor that would come to define her entire career. She wasn't just interested in the stars, she was fluent in their language. Her talent was undeniable, but talent alone wasn't enough. To get anywhere, she needed an entry point, a way into the official world of astronomy. That door opened when she met Gottfried Kirch. He was 30 years her senior, and, at the time, Germany's most celebrated astronomer. He was a product of the system, a man with connections and a reputation. What made him different was his willingness to see past Maria's gender and recognize her extraordinary intellect. He had been taught by the same Christoph Arnold years earlier, creating a shared intellectual lineage. For Gottfried, Maria wasn't just a potential spouse. She was a brilliant colleague, a partner in observation. Their marriage in 1692 was as much a professional merger as it was a personal union. They became, in essence, Germany's first astronomical power couple. Their life together was a whirlwind of celestial activity. They worked tirelessly, producing calendars and ephemerides, detailed tables predicting the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. This was the bread and butter of working astronomers, a crucial and highly complex task that required immense mathematical skill. Maria was not a mere assistant taking notes, she was a full partner in these calculations. In 1700, their fortunes ascended when Gottfried was appointed the first official royal astronomer of the Berlin Academy of Sciences, a prestigious new institution founded by Frederick I of Prussia. They moved to the capital, and their home essentially became the city's observatory. But here, the institutional barriers became starkly clear. While Gottfried held the official, salaried title, Maria was designated as his unofficial, unpaid assistant. It was the only way the system could accommodate her presence. She was allowed in the room, but her name was kept off the door. Their nightly routine was a model of collaborative efficiency. To ensure complete coverage of the heavens, they worked in shifts or divided the sky between them. While Gottfried scanned one section, Maria would meticulously sweep another. This wasn't the work of a master and an apprentice, it was the work of two seasoned professionals operating in perfect sync. And Maria's contributions went far beyond simple assistance. She was an independent observer, making and recording her own discoveries. In 1707, she observed a spectacular display of the aurora borealis and published a well-received pamphlet about it. In 1709, she published another work on the upcoming conjunction of the Sun, Saturn, and Venus, a piece that showcased her deep understanding of planetary mechanics. She was building a body of work, proving her capabilities to anyone who was paying attention. She was, in every sense of the word, an astronomer in her own right, respected by those who worked with her directly. But the official record, the history being written by the academies and journals, remained stubbornly blind to her. She was simply the astronomer's wife. This collaboration, so fruitful and intellectually stimulating, was built on a societal fault line, a deep crack in the foundation of their world that was about to rupture with the force of a celestial impact. The groundwork was laid for a discovery that would define her legacy and a betrayal that would tragically and furiously attempt to erase it. Comet 1702 discovery. The night of April 21, 1702, began like any other in the Kirch Household Observatory. The air in Berlin was likely cold, the sky a familiar tapestry of constellations. The routine was set. Gottfried, by then in his early 60s, would often retire to bed early, leaving the initial hours of observation to his younger, tireless wife. Maria, then 32, took her place at the telescope. This was her sanctuary, the place where the rigid hierarchies of the world below melted away, leaving only her, the lenses, and the infinite expanse above. She was sweeping the sky, a methodical search for the new and the unexpected, a cosmic treasure hunt she had performed hundreds of times before. But on this night, her patient search was about to be rewarded in the most spectacular way imaginable. There, in the constellation of Grus, the crane, she saw it. A faint, fuzzy patch of light where no patch of light should be. It was a nebulous star, as she would later describe it, something that was not on any of their meticulously crafted star charts. An experienced observer knows the difference between a familiar nebula and an interloper. A jolt of adrenaline, the thrill of discovery, must have coursed through her. This was the moment every astronomer dreams of. She tracked the object, noting its position, its movement relative to the background stars. It was moving. This was no distant star cluster. It was a comet, a visitor to our solar system, previously unknown to humankind. She knew immediately the significance of what she had found. She woke Gottfried, and together they observed the celestial traveler until it vanished into the dawn twilight. It was her discovery, her moment, a testament to her skill and dedication. The joy, however, was tragically short-lived. The discovery of a new comet was a major event, one that brought prestige and recognition. It had to be announced, documented, and published for the scientific community. And this is where the societal machine ground Maria's achievement into dust. Gottfried Kirch, her husband and colleague, wrote up the discovery and sent it for publication in the scientific journal. When it was published, it bore only one name as the discoverer, Gottfried Kirch. Maria was not mentioned. Not as a co-discoverer, not even as an assistant who had spotted it. She was, in the official historical record, completely erased from her own discovery. Why would he do this? To paint Gottfried as a simple, mustache-twirling villain would be too easy. The truth is more insidious, rooted in the very structure of their world. For Gottfried, claiming the discovery was likely a matter of professional survival and pragmatism, however unjust. Imagine the scenario from his perspective. He was the royal astronomer. How would it look to his patrons and his peers at the Berlin Academy if he admitted that his own wife, his unpaid assistant, had made a major discovery at the telescope while he was asleep?
It would be embarrassing. It would invite ridicule. His credibility, and by extension the credibility of the discovery itself, would be questioned. The male-dominated scientific community would likely dismiss a finding by a woman as a fluke, an error, or feminine fancy. In his mind, putting his name on it was the only way to ensure the comet was taken seriously. It was a calculation born of a deeply sexist system, a system he was a part of and from which he benefited. The ultimate proof of this internal conflict, the smoking gun of this scientific injustice, comes from Gottfried's own hand years later. In his journal notes, published in 1710, he finally set the record straight, at least privately. He wrote, and I paraphrase, "In the early morning, the sky was clear and starry. Some nights before, I had observed a variable star, and my wife wanted to find and see it for herself. In so doing, she found a comet in the sky, at which time she woke me, and I found that it was indeed a comet. I believe this comet has not been known before." There it is, a clear, unambiguous admission. She found it. She woke him up. It was her discovery. But this confession was buried in his private notes, a footnote to history rather than the headline it should have been. By the time it came to light, the official record had long been set in stone. The comet was known as Kirch's comet, and everyone assumed it was Gottfried's. The damage was done. Maria was forced to live with the quiet knowledge of her achievement while the world celebrated her husband for it. For the next 8 years, until his death, she continued to work by his side, a silent partner in a collaboration now forever tainted by this profound act of erasure. This one stolen moment would cast a long, dark shadow, forcing her into a new and even more difficult fight for her own name and her own place in the stars. Forgotten female scientist. In 1710, Gottfried Kirch died, leaving Maria a 40-year-old widow with children to support. But she was more than just a widow. She was now, by any objective measure, one of the most experienced and capable astronomers in all of Prussia. She had spent 2 decades doing the rigorous, day-in, day-out work of a professional scientist. She had made independent discoveries, published her own pamphlets, and had been the engine of the Kirch family's astronomical enterprise. With Gottfried gone, a vacancy opened up for the position of royal astronomer at the Berlin Academy. For Maria, this was the logical next step. She wasn't just seeking a job, she was the most qualified candidate to continue the work she had already been doing for a decade. She formally petitioned the Academy for the position. Her application was not an appeal to charity. It was a sound business proposition. A significant portion of the Academy's income came from its monopoly on producing and selling official calendars, a task the Kirches had been managing. Maria made it clear she could and would continue this vital work without interruption. She had the support of the Academy's president, the great philosopher and mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who had long admired her intellect and argued forcefully on her behalf. He wrote to the Academy, stating it would be a shame to lose her talent and that she was a most proficient observer. The case seemed strong. She had the skills, the experience, and the endorsement of one of Europe's greatest minds. But she was missing the one credential the Academy valued above all others. She was not a man. The rejection, when it came, was as swift as it was insulting. The Academy Council refused to even consider her. The official reasoning was that it would set a terrible precedent. Johann Theodor Jablonski, the Academy's secretary, wrote that her appointment would be a laughingstock to the world. He worried that mouths would gape, and it would simply not be seemly for a woman to hold such a title. It was a decision based not on merit, but on prejudice and the fear of social embarrassment. The gates of the scientific establishment, which had been cracked open just enough for her to peek through as an assistant, were now slammed shut and bolted in her face. The position eventually went to a man named Johann Heinrich Hoffmann, a man with significantly less experience, who then struggled so much with the observational duties that he had to rely on Maria for assistance. The irony was as bitter as it was predictable. Undeterred, Maria Kirch forged on. If the official institutions wouldn't have her, she would find another way. She found patronage with a wealthy amateur astronomer, Baron von Krosigk, and worked at his private observatory. She continued to publish, producing well-regarded pamphlets on the 1712 solar eclipse and the Great Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 1714. She trained her son, Christfried, and her daughters, Christine and Margarita, in the family science, turning them into skilled astronomers in their own right. In a final poignant twist, after her brief return to the Berlin Observatory to assist other astronomers, it was her son, Christfried, who was eventually appointed director in 1740, the very position she had been so cruelly denied. She had paved the way for her son to achieve the status she deserved. Maria Kirch's story is a heartbreakingly perfect example of a phenomenon that wouldn't get a name for another 250 years, the Matilda effect. Coined by science historian Margaret W. Rossiter in 1993, the Matilda effect describes the pervasive, systemic tendency to deny, repress, and misattribute the scientific contributions of women, often crediting their male colleagues instead. Maria Kirch wasn't an anomaly. She was the blueprint. Think of Rosalind Franklin, whose critical X-ray photograph of DNA was shown to Watson and Crick without her permission, providing the final clue to the double helix. Or Lise Meitner, who did the foundational theoretical work for nuclear fission, only to see her partner Otto Hahn receive the Nobel Prize alone. The list is long and infuriating. These women were not just forgotten, their intellectual property was stolen, their legacies obscured by the very systems they sought to contribute to. So, what is Maria Kirch's true legacy? It is not just the comet C1702H1 that now unofficially bears her name in some circles. Her legacy is one of defiant resilience. In a world that told her she didn't belong, she looked to the heavens and carved out a place for herself anyway. Her story is a powerful, painful reminder that history is not a perfect record of events. It is a narrative written by the victors, and for centuries, the victors in science were exclusively men. Unearthing the stories of women like Maria Kirch is not about rewriting history, but about correcting it. It's about giving credit where it was long overdue, and ensuring that the brilliant light of these forgotten figures is never allowed to be extinguished again.